Why is it that hope vanishes right when you need it most? As someone who's battled an incurable disease and lost an unwinnable fight to save my leg, I have some experience with seemingly hopeless situations. How do you keep hoping things will be all right if things aren't all right and it isn't physically possible for them to ever be all right again? I'm not a professional, but as someone who's walked this path before, I have 3 words of advice. Find your center. Have you ever watched a potter at work? They put clay on a wheel, then get it spinning. But if the clay is even a little off-center, what happens when things get going fast? The clay disconnects from the foundation and goes flying. It's literally out of control. Contrast that to what happens when the clay is centered. If it's on the true center, then even when things accelerate, thereby exerting more and more centrifugal force, the clay can hold tight to its foundation. Not only that, but it can be shaped in the midst of it all. I've observed that when people lose hope, including me, it's because I'm not on the true center. I say true center because sometimes the obvious thing to hope for isn't actually a safe foundation to place your hopes on. Consider someone who's trying to save their leg. If their hope is focused solely on salvaging their limb, but then the medical situation changes and amputation is no longer avoidable, then their hope is snuffed out like a candle in a strong wind. Without hope, you can end up bitter, disillusioned, and struggling to move on. That's a very dark place to be. But what if your hope was centered on something else? I have a video about the full story, but when I realized my foot was going to be amputated, I made a conscious decision to recenter my life on things that mattered most and that couldn't be taken away from me. I wanted to do some good in this world and live a meaningful life. Having 2 feet is not a prerequisite to fulfilling that desire. With this as my focus, in a way it no longer mattered what happened to my leg, because I was centered on something solid that couldn't be blown over in a figurative gust of wind. If anything, learning to stand tall despite the wind would make me stronger. Which brings up a good point. Part of finding your center is shifting your focus away from the outcome and onto becoming. Even good things like getting better from an illness or accomplishing certain types of goals aren't the same as becoming the person you want to be. As much as these other things do matter, at the end of the day, who I am is something that definitely matters. Did you notice how the potter finds the center? By putting the clay under intense pressure. Just like I found my center in a heartbreaking moment, knowing that I was about to lose not only my leg, but also the life I'd known before. You might also find your center in the very moment when hope feels lost. When I think of people I most admire, they tend to be individuals who have passed through incredibly difficult things. I don't think they would have turned out quite the same way if they hadn't had those intense experiences that forced them to dig deep and find who they truly were and wanted to be. Just like pots are formed under speed and pressure, we can shape ourselves even and especially when things get hard. A lump of clay just sitting around isn't likely to change much. It just gets set in its ways. Clay in motion is another story. When things get going fast and the pressure mounts, the clay will either go flying or it will change and grow, all in relation to its center. Despite, or rather because of the speed and pressure, something beautiful is created. It's still the same clay, but it's been molded into a new form, not by random chance, but by intention, by letting the pressure change it and staying centered. The most hopeful thing I can tell you is that you have a major say in what happens. Maybe you can't control all the circumstances or outcomes, but you get to choose how you'll allow your experiences to shape you. In life, it's not a matter of if things will get going fast, but a matter of when and how. To become the person you want to be, you've got to find your center. I can't tell you what it is, nor do I think asking Google or Alexa will give you the answer. You're the one who needs to find it. I invite you to dig deep, Find a quiet place, lay aside distractions, and try to identify something that you can rely on no matter what. Something immovable that you can hold on to. Finding your center can refer to your life as a whole, or it could be limited to a specific setting. My husband was stressed out at work because sometimes clients ask engineers to create things that aren't practical or even possible with current technology and circumstances. I asked him what his center was. He realized that he'd been focused on completing these projects. That isn't a true center. False centers tend to give out under pressure. I mean, if you place your hopes on an iffy project, then the project doesn't pan out. Where does that leave you? A true center needs to be stable and enduring. My husband and I talked it out, asking questions such as why this work even matters and why does he choose to do it. He realized he's doing a tough job because ultimately the work he does helps his country. Serving his country through his work is a center he can hold on to, regardless of whether a proposed project succeeds or fails, regardless of where he's at in his career, what position he holds, or who his employer is. In an environment where things move fast and there's a lot of pressure, he now has an anchor, a safe place from which to make decisions and rekindle motivation. Just like the eye of a hurricane, things tend to be more peaceful in the center. Life will never be all right. There are problems we can't solve, injuries that will never heal, and consequences we can't escape. If your hope is centered on fixing every problem, avoiding all pain, and erasing unwanted consequences, then sooner or later you will be disappointed. I'd advise against fixing your center on a desired outcome. And if you believe in a higher power, try believing simply because you believe, not because you're expecting a desired outcome in exchange for your belief. When I've witnessed people going through a crisis of faith, it's been because they were centered on the outcome, not on their values or core beliefs. Likewise, if you place your center on other people, it can be shaken if those people let you down, leaving you feeling alone and forgotten. Or maybe they weren't there for you through no fault of their own, such as because of death or other difficult circumstances. Your center needs to be internal, so find what matters to you, whether it's integrity, serving others, or some other value you treasure. Make sure it's something strong that you can hold on to no matter what. Under pressure with life spinning around you, you can find peace and hope again. That very pressure and speed can shape you into someone incredible if you allow it to, because the shaping will occur around something you treasure. Every beautiful vase you've ever seen had to pass through fire before it became the beautiful creation that it is. Regardless of what's happened to you, your life is still worth living. And once you find your center, you may be surprised to find that hope wasn't lost after all. You were simply looking the wrong way. A special thanks to Cache Valley Pottery Studio. Not only are they awesome, but they have a blowtorch, and it doesn't get any better than that. So whatever you're going through, hang in there and hold to the hope of better days to come.